Have with us former Republican Congressman Charlie Dent of Pennsylvania. He's the executive director of the Aspen Institute Congressional Program, and MSNBC political analyst Kimberly Atkins-Storr. She is a Boston Globe columnist and co-host of the #Sisters-in-Law podcast.
So here we are, a whole new frontier with trade. Being at the center of the Trump administration, thinking that they've actually fixed the problem by opening the gates with the UK. Charlie, what's your sense of what this arrangement is with the UK and the impact it has on American consumers and workers? Because I give you the American Automotive Policy Council statement saying, under this deal, it will now be cheaper to import a UK vehicle with very little U.S. content than a USMCA-compliant vehicle from Mexico or Canada that has half American parts. This hurts American automakers, suppliers, and auto workers. So not a good deal? Well, the United States and the UK should enter into a trade agreement, but not any trade agreement. I've been saying this for years. Ever since the British Brexited, they need trade agreements desperately, and frankly, so does President Trump, given this really absurd trade war. But they're rushing this, and so the devil will be in the details, as they say. But we don't know if this is a good deal or a bad deal today. But the preliminary,
we don't know if it is a deal today.
We don't even know. Look, to write a trade deal, it takes a lot of time. President Biden didn't do any trade deals. Trump did one. He did an update of NAFTA, USMCA, and they're out of practice. But my experience is, and we've done South Korea, Panama, CAFTA, Oman, all of them that I was involved with. It took time. I mean, these just cannot be forced and rushed. So this is a concept, but there's going to be a lot of commentary on it. It's a long way before it gets ratified, I think.
I think people talk about this all the time, but that the president does things to distract. I don't think this was a distraction today. I think that he needed to win. He has overpromised on these tariffs and underdelivered for weeks at this point. The Treasury Secretary and Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, have been saying, we're talking to a lot of people. A lot of folks want to negotiate with us. We're coming to agreements. And what we saw today, the big pomp and circumstance of this announcement, if you will, of a deal, we're going to use quotes every time we talk about a deal, I believe was to try to throw a little something out there in the ether, to put something on the table, as Michael Steele would say, to quiet some of the critics. But we're still going to be critical, because this is not what they say it is.
It isn't. It's a shiny object. It's for something out there for people to look at and give them the opportunity to say, hey, we're doing something. But it's still like an arsonist saying, okay, well, I have a framework of a deal that's coming in a few weeks to get a fire hose out to this house as it burns. It's a problem that he created with this trade war that nobody asked for. And he's seeing the implications of it, and he's trying to do something. But here's the thing. Everything even that he said, we're going to get manufacturing again, just as you said, talk to automakers who he clearly doesn't have an understanding about how cars and other cross-country goods are produced. How we build a car in America, for heaven's sake. And he's the one who negotiated USMCA. So the fact that he doesn't know that is really outrageous. The fact that he's saying, oh, well, they're going to we're going to make a great deal for the UK to export American agriculture. How are you going to do that when, first of all, the UK's safety standards are so high that with the gutting of the FDA and the USDA, they may not take a lot of this agricultural products? How are you going to produce this agriculture without immigrants who work in this field? And there are already trade groups saying that they're going to be hit terribly by the immigration policy. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors, but there does not seem to be much there.
It's a lot of smoke and mirrors, but it's also, to your point, a lot of connected parts.
Right.
And that is what he is not understanding. He's also not understanding, I think there are the poll numbers that show that Americans are unhappy with how they perceive these tariffs to be impacting the economy. There's also the fact that our allies are beginning to consider what the global trade order is going to look like without us. So there was reporting in the New York Times about how the EU is developing a backup plan. The European Commission, the executive arm of the European Union, announced 2 new steps that it would take to hit back at America if trade negotiations fail. Officials laid out about $107 billion worth of goods that they could target with higher tariffs in retaliation to the duties that the U.S. has announced or imposed. Here's the other part. They also said that the bloc would start a World Trade Organization dispute against the United States on Trump's across-the-board tariffs, as well as duties levied on cars and car parts. There is restructuring global trade. There is then restructuring the global order.
And what about the champagne? The EU, the champagne.
Well, those are geographic identifiers.
That is of particular interest to my co-host.
Well, yeah, well, it's champagne, it's Bologna, it's Gouda. I get it. But the problem we've got right now is Trump's level of tariffs are just so ridiculously high. Yeah. And even with this UK agreement, whatever it is, he still maintains a 10% across the board. And the American people are reacting against these tariffs because this is a massive tax increase by any measure. Any Republican, who's against taxes, this is the mother of all tax increases. And that's why people are upset with it. This trade proposal is part of his disengagement policy, shutting down USAID, getting rid of soft power, retreating from our allies, trade war. This is all an inward-looking country, and frankly, it'll make us less prosperous. It'll make us poorer. And so this deal, I hope they get something together, but it doesn't sound like it's very comprehensive.
Right. America first becomes America alone becomes America last.
Yeah, I mean and that's okay with MAGA Republicans who have a backward view of the American economy. They perceive any integration or relationship to be unequal. And so if you go into a relationship with that perspective, it's going to be very hard to reset it and get it to move, even if it is slightly out of balance, to fix it. There is, as you know, Congressman, right, there is an upside to having a trade imbalance with certain partners because of the way we consume their goods, and our people like it, and that's good. It's not out of line for that to happen. The problem that Donald Trump has goes to exactly what Commerce Secretary Lutnick said today. Let's listen to him about Trump's hopes for de-escalation with, shall I say the C word, China.
The president did say that he expects a, quote, good weekend with China. What would be defined as good?
Well, de-escalation. That's what the president hopes is a good outcome, is a de-escalating world where we go back to trading with each other, and then we work on a big deal together.
Everybody's already started de-escalating with the United States, and de-escalation is we're not going to be bothered with you. The Chinese are sitting there going,
would bring prosperity like he said he would. This isn't really about the partisan imprint from last year's election. This is now about the governing of President Trump and how it's actually going. And people don't think it's going well. The punchline is there isn't really a good other side of this debate. MAGA figures are looking at the trade deficits. And remember, it's complicated, we've heard from economists, but by the Trump plan, meaning what he said this was about, was dealing with the trade deficit countries, China, Mexico, Vietnam. Those are the big countries you see there where he says we're getting the raw end of the deal. That's what he and his allies have fixated on.
With respect, are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal because you're a president who needs a result at a difficult time?
I think that it's a great deal for both parties.
Now,
the world has been coming to the U.S., and China has been the missing piece.
China wants to do something. And look, they have to at this point. Essentially, they made $1 trillion a year. We almost had a deal with China where we're going to open up China. It was almost done.
China has taken over 60,000 of our factories, over 5 million manufacturing jobs. The conflict we're having with them cannot be understated, and we have to be clear-eyed about that.
all right, so as far as Trump aides are concerned, including Peter Navarro, who's been on this program, can't be understated or overstated. It is just the biggest deal to go after China and those other countries I showed you where you have this gap. So that's the whole priority. If you hear Donald Trump pop up today, tomorrow, or next week talking about other countries and other stuff, by his measure, forget anyone else, by his measure, that is not what the trade war is about. It's not why he started the tariffs, because, again, he wanted to make up for the big deficit countries, where basically he says America's getting a raw deal because we're buying more than we're selling, yada, yada, yada. That's his metric. Now, in addition, I can tell you, if you want to get into sort of the economics of fact-checking, and it's not black and white, but most mainstream economists have said, economic experts, economists, professors, and people in the markets who do this day by day, they say that you actually don't think of trade deficits as automatically bad. Indeed, there are many occasions where you want to run trade deficits. To pick a very simple example, if you're a country that doesn't have the weather to make bananas, then you're going to have a banana deficit because you want to ship them into your country. That deficit isn't good or bad. It's just a product of reality. You don't make bananas, you can't grow them here, people want them, you buy them. Add 100 other products and you get the idea. But again, Trump says these tariffs will deal with what he calls these concerning trade deficits with those countries like China and other countries in Asia. So keep that in mind when you learn that this week, you may have seen this if you've been on your phone or the internet today, Trump has announced a relatively small partial agreement, but it's not with China. It's not with Vietnam. It's with the United Kingdom. And the United States, if you're using the Trump measure, runs a trade surplus with them to about $12 billion last year. This kind of handshake trade deal does not end all the tariffs. Bloomberg reports the framework basically leaves many key details for later. Key issues unresolved. Apparently, the goal is to get some sort of claim of a deal or a partial deal headline out there and save the hard stuff for later. Paul Krugman, the Nobel-winning economist, says that pretending to fix what's broke seems to be the order of the day, and it may or may not happen. He also calls this the tariff equivalent of concepts of a plan.
Donald is getting attacked by his own side, by his own MAGA Republican Party. I know not all Republicans are MAGA, but in the year of our Lord, 2020, I don't even know 2025, my God, this presidency is going to take forever. But in this year, Republicans, it is the MAGA Party. And so when he's getting attacked by Republicans, he's getting attacked by members of the MAGA Party, whether they are MAGA or not. Right? And what you're seeing here is people turn on Trump. And it's a mixture of some genuine disagreement, but also a lot of self-preservation and selfishness. A lot of rich Republican people, a lot of Republican politicians, what they're effectively saying is, look, we don't really care either way about ideology. Some of us do. What we care about is getting rich, staying rich, crushing workers and minorities, and making our base, especially our big donor base, very happy. And you have made that very hard, Mr. President. Your tariffs are hurting our rich donors. Your tariffs are hurting our poll numbers. And your tariffs are hurting our grand scheme to continue to trick the American people into believing that Republicans, whether MAGA or normal Republicans, either one, that we are better on the economy. And that lie that the American people believe is what allows them to say, oh, we're better in the economy, so you have to cut taxes on the rich, attack workers, attack unions, attack regulations, and all of the above. But what Donald has done is exposed the fact that no, Republicans, because Trump is the Republican Party, are worse on the economy, and it's not even close. And so Republicans are turning on him, and big business is turning on him simply because he's humiliated them and exposed them to